So let's just clear the air firstly with the Bernie one, is that I'd love to sit here and be able to tell you this is exactly what we've found and exactly what we're doing with him, but I can't. We think we've got almost all the facts. A really key issue though is that we haven't been able to find the complainant. The email that was sent to the radio station, we're keen to find out a little bit more from those people and their perspective, because there are some aspects of that email that just don't stack up in terms of what we found the case to be over in Stansbury. So that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing is that I haven't been able to get our right people together to be able to deal with it. So I'm happy to deal with any questions you've got on it, but at the moment I can't give you an answer, and probably won't be until tomorrow morning.
Have you spoken with Bernie?
I haven't spoken personally with Bernie yet, but Phil Harper's had several discussions with Bernie. And his version of events are borne out by a number of people around him up there, including those who are at the function, bearing out that it was a silly thing to do. Down to boxer shorts in a public place, although they were trying to make it a non-public place in the sense that it was closed to general patrons. But there is no suggestion of sculling beers, there is no suggestion of driving home, there is no suggestion of abusing people, and so at the moment it looks like a silly action. Now the only other thing that is in our minds at the moment clearly is it's another silly action, and as a result I'm wanting to talk to my guys when I can gather them up about you know, the latest in a few silly actions that Bernie's undertaken. So that'll take place this afternoon, later this afternoon or the morning, and we'll get you some info, but that's just about all I can give you, I reckon.
The way things are playing out, the fact that apparently this family is so offended that they left and are threatening to tear up the memberships, yet you haven't heard from them. Sounds like there's some silly buggers going on, possibly targeting he makes himself a target at times, does Bernie? But
it's part of the reason why I sit here, not with a conclusion, because they're not on our membership base, and not on a SANFL membership base. So we've emailed them twice, and we're trying to find a response. We haven't got it, and so with all that other information at hand that I just explained to you, clearly you'd want to have a discussion with people who make an allegation like that. And just at the moment, we don't have any people like that on our database.
It's not quite a hanging offence, but as you say, it's a list of them. At what point does the camel start running straws?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, because in so many ways Bernie is such a, dare I say, a loved and integral part of our organisation. But the silliness that goes with it sometimes is a distraction to us. I can't answer you directly, Michelangelo, but it does become a distraction, and there'll be some out there who'd say at the moment, and look, Bernie will be dealt with strongly on this one way or the other, because it's inappropriate to be in a public place, even though it's trying not to be a public place, like that. But to those out there who would say, well, you know, but it's boys being boys, there's no issue to it. You don't understand it. You guys are sitting here asking me all these questions about it, and I've got staff who've spent 2 days on this thing. And in the week where we're trying to get some oxygen for a NAB Cup Grand Final, it's not what we want to have as a footy club, simply because of a silly action that happens somewhere on the York Peninsula. So, you know, you get the point. It is, to those out there who say there's nothing to it, yeah, it's a silly action, and ordinarily you could let it slide by, but unfortunately, one, it's an accumulation, and two, we spend an enormous amount of time on it because of public interest.
What's the best way to handle any sanction? Leadership, group management, coach?
All in.
What's on the table for Bernie here? Is there suspension maybe gone for good, or is that too harsh?
I wouldn't have thought so. I wouldn't have thought of suspension, but I mean, we need to be strong in our dealings with him, and as much as anything, it's a work in progress, to speak openly about it, to try and get him to understand that we love the spirit, and we don't want to take the fun out of it, and we want him to play the game with flair and do all those things, but just a little lapse of judgment like that can create days of, unfortunately in this business, days of distraction. That's what it is.
I guess because of their profile and because of Bernie's history, like any AFL player, just by virtue of who they are, could become a physical target at a pub if somebody wants to get involved in that. Somebody like Bernie with a bit of history like that, something that for another player might be fairly innocent, people can jump on with the history and turn it into something bigger than it is.
Which is inherent in your question about where the email's coming from. And it's in our minds as well. And that's a reality. But we didn't create that. The club didn't create that. And that's one of the things that Bernie's going to have to face up to, is that if not you guys sitting right here, aspects of the media will be watching him really carefully. The public will be watching him really carefully. And you might get the odd one thrown in there, the odd Dorothy Dix thrown in there that's not right. Troublesome. And deciphering what's real and what's not real, and that is sometimes a bit hard, but that's the fact that if you put a string of these silly little items together, you might be subject to someone just throwing a red herring in there somewhere. Now, I'm not saying this one's a red herring yet, right? Because we know as much as we know is that it's not a great look to be in boxer shorts in a public place. Okay, we understand that. But your point is well made, is that it creates an opportunity for those who want to be destructive.
You just ask yourself, why, Bernie? Why?
Did I ask myself, or did he?
You.
I think he's asking himself the question now. But you need to ask that question as the individual before the event, not after.
Are you suggesting that suspension is not
I think
unlikely?
you ask me, I'd say it's very unlikely.
Yeah,
And
so
I'll have fair influence in it. You would think fairly significant influence in it. I would think it's fairly unlikely because, well, just because.
What are the other options? Fine.
Well, you can fine people, or you can community work, or you can do all sorts of things in there. But as much as anything, there'll be this part to it. Actually, there'll be something in there that just is a reminder of what needs to be done. And at the same time, we will need to have an ongoing process of education with Bernie. And I'm really pleased with the work that our full-time, on-staff, new leadership, strategy leadership people are doing. And they will work really closely with Bernie to get him to make good choices at the right time. And all of our playing group for that matter, but given this latest one, there'll be a fair emphasis on what Bernie's doing.
Is there a concern there because it's a family club and because of the effect it might have on young fans?
You can overplay that, I think, Badge. No, that doesn't concern me at the moment. But I am prepared to say that the brand of the Adelaide Footy Club is always at the forefront of my mind. It's part of my responsibility to protect the brand. And silly little items like the one we had Sunday are not necessarily in keeping with that brand.
Stephen, is it going to be hard to get the complainant to step forward now, considering where they're getting bashed by your own members saying that you should actually strip the membership off them?
The hardest part about this is that you'll have some people out there going, how ridiculous we should be even talking about it, and you'll have some others out here who'll be saying he should be suspended. In the end, I bring it back to this, is bring it back to your values as an organisation and what is right. Because in these sorts of situations, in my experience, guys, you can't win in terms of appeasing everybody, including perhaps the complainant, if there is one.
It's an odd way to go about it, not going straight to the club and going to a local sports
Of course we would prefer to deal with it, and that doesn't directly, and that would never ever mean, great, it's an opportunity to keep it in-house and do nothing with it, because when it's out there like that, the philosophy is you deal with it transparently. But yeah, it is an odd way to do it, to go straight to a media outlet rather than the footy club.
Do you know what the coach's reaction has been to this?
Well, disappointed, as you imagine, and why? Because we're pretty keen to play well this week and to have a good preparation for this week. So he's disappointed from that perspective, but I haven't had an opportunity to talk to him about exactly how we're going to handle it yet, because we were all off site yesterday and they've been training this morning and the like, and we were programmed for this time.
Is it easier just to not play in this week to take that full distraction away so that you can focus on
look, what I don't want to do is debate with you the merits of suspension versus fining versus counselling versus whatever, because that's a, you know, I don't need that to be played out in public. It's something that we need to contemplate, have in the past, and continue to contemplate. And my personal view of suspension, just for what it's worth, having said what I said, my personal view of suspension is that it's a very extreme measure for an act or a series of acts that are right at the end of nearing the end of the scale. Now, keep in mind with Bernie, he hasn't broken the law, he hasn't hurt anybody. This is about brand and about a repetition. So that's why I'm putting into context a bit of where we might be headed with this without actually telling you where we're headed with it.
Is that saying that you've dealt with him too harshly previously then?
Sometimes you make decisions to try and get through. That's part of your process as well. What's going to get through?
Have you found out why the action happened at all?
Well, I've been involved in sporting clubs before where there's a group mentality to it, and I think he got caught up in the group mentality of this is what we're doing to celebrate, and this is. So I have a level of understanding about that, but with my AFL player's hat on, before I could make this colourful, but I know it'd be great copy for you, but before I took the action that was taken, I'd be thinking about the consequences.
Post what you do today or tomorrow morning, where's your level of patience after that?
Oh, it's stretched. You know, it's stretched.
Is there any ban on him drinking alcohol?
No, it wasn't actually an issue, Steve. And the thing it was that to the best of our ability in terms of understanding from several surrounding reports was not an issue. Okay, it wasn't a drinking issue. So we can put that one to bed.